Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Let's get started right away just so that Milan can hopefully get some sleep today. Hi everybody! Welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. With me today is Zazubar, aka Bill, and my good friend Milan Jeftik 1992. That is his real name, everybody. And today on Geeky Gentlemen, we are going to be discussing mystery, but in particular, whether it works better in prose, that's literature, or on film.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Waiting for someone else to interject.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were still going. No, but yeah, we're gonna be talking about mystery and stuff, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yes, it is a fascinating subject, and a broad subject to cover, actually. You mind if I start?
Go ahead.
Mystery is, like I said, mystery is a fascinating subject because there's so many ways of telling a good mystery story. The easiest is possibly to have is by telling a detective story. Of course, you can go into the genre of horror, but that's a whole nother ball game. Detectives and mystery goes hand in hand, and well, there's two ways of doing a detective story. You can have a character who's kind of detached from the situation and observes the crime and kind of goes into an almost analytical seizure, examining every tiny little detail of the crime, almost like a computer, kind of like that's how Sherlock Holmes does it. But you can play with then you can play around with the character dynamics by having him being a almost kind of a high functioning Asperger's, to have a character who's crazy like Rorschach, or you can have it be a fun dynamic by giving him a sidekick and somebody to talk to, which funny enough is why Batman has a Robin, because Sherlock Holmes has a Watson, because they can't just have the detective solving the crime in his head, because then he just sounds crazy. And that's why Frank Miller has all his detective characters narrate everything, because then you can add an extra element of madness to the character. It all depends what you want to do, how you want to portray the character.
Yeah, and actually, you said that detectives are generally what you go for. And when you say detective, it's usually either a private eye or someone who works in one branch or another of law enforcement. And I think that's the case just because that's the easiest way to have a continuing story.
Right. If it's their job that they're getting paid for.
Yeah, like you got Monk, you have Psych, you have White Collar. And these are all things that are continuing stories because my favorite mysteries, you could never really do a continuation. I tried to watch 3 movies that I just absolutely adore, and I just didn't have the time to because it's finals week. Or it's getting close to finals week, rather, and I've been working on my TARDIS. But anyway,
that just sounds so fitting.
Yeah, my favorite 3 mystery films are actually, in order, Big Nothing, Lucky Number 11, and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And the thing is, Lucky Number 11 and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang tend to trade places just depending on my mood. But all 3 of these, I mean, like, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang has a detective in it, but he's definitely not the main character. All 3 of these mostly follow criminals or people who are generally on the wrong side of the law in some kind of a gray way. And what they're going through in this, it all just kind of unravels. Big Nothing's my favorite just because shit goes so wrong right from the get-go, and then continues to get worse as the movie progresses. They're just getting deeper and deeper and deeper to this shitstorm, and it's just fantastic to watch. But you could never continue that story, so that's why I think you typically have detectives associated with fiction or with mystery stories, because it's their job to do it, but also it's a good way to be able to continue your story.
Right,
Yes,
because they're not going to stop being detectives as soon as that mystery is solved.
Yeah, mystery tends to be an episodic type of genre. It's more fun. Yeah.
I don't know. I like a single self-contained mystery. Single self-contained mysteries tend to be a little bit more believable. When you have things like Monk, the one that cracks me up is like he's solving a murder essentially every week, right?
Right.
And they occasionally have to call attention to these things. My favorite way they did it is every time Monk went on vacation, somebody died. Like when he left the city, inevitably, like on the airplane or somehow somebody was dead at the hotel or whatever. And like around about the third or the fourth time they did it, they like directly addressed like, "You're bad luck. You keep getting people killed on these trips." It's like, no, I just happened to notice this. Like either there is a significantly high number of murders just going on that no one notices except for Monk, or this show's recognizing that it has kind of a contrivance associated with it.
I would assume the latter rather than the former. But for me,
But, you can actually say that.
Milan, let's give Bill a chance.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Bill.
That's okay. No, but for me, mystery is not very. I talked about this when I reviewed Sherlock. Mystery is something for me where I'm not a huge fan of the murder mystery kind of genre. I'm not opposed to it. There's some of it that I like, but a murder mystery does not immediately intrigue me unless there's something else behind it. And that's of course when you get into the realm of something like a monster movie that would take that one step further. Like something like Kolchak the Night Stalker did that. Like there would be a murder that can be seen as like not supernatural, but then there's something else that only Kolchak notices that makes it supernatural.
Weird. But then you go into realms of weird fiction, which is, like I said before, mystery is a broad genre.
Ron, can you move the microphone a little closer to yourself? You're a little quiet.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Is this good enough?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Good.
By the way, viewers, how are you liking the new Milan?
This is Milan at 5 a.m. Everybody.
Yes, indeed.
And Bill, the thing I have a problem with when you introduce supernatural elements into a mystery that otherwise looks to be a normal situation is at that point, unless the writer's using very, very standard rules for these, supernatural monsters, it tends to get a little unfair, because I think the mark of a good mystery is you should be able to call it. If you're paying attention, you should be able to call what's going on before the characters figure it all out, right? Or before it's all revealed. Or you should be able to call it with the main detective character. That's the mark of a good mystery. A great mystery is when you didn't call it along the way, but it all makes perfect sense. My problem with supernatural elements is the writers, as they should, get to make up their own rules for the characters, or for these, supernatural beings, and so it makes it hard. It makes it impossible to call it unless you're the writer.
I'm gonna disagree with you only because for me it's not about calling it. It's about being along for the ride, along with the detective or whoever our point of view is, experiencing this mystery. Like again, it looks like one thing. It looks like something that we cannot, identify or separate from the norm, but there's this one aspect about it that we can't understand. I don't know. I like being kind of duped by that, and just kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? And then once the detective or the main character calls it, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean that's good. It's
I got
just
something to say.
Just real quick, let me just get this out. That's fine, and I do like getting that feeling of, oh, that's how it worked. But at the same time, that's more of a good supernatural story, good horror story, good sci-fi story, what have you, as opposed to a good mystery. Go ahead.
But what's the difference, though?
Well,
that's
a
my
mystery...
question.
We'll get back to that. Milan, go ahead.
Basically, well, Ian, yes, well, Bill, if the solution is supernatural, then basically it's all up in the air. The solution could be basically anything, unless you're dealing with very, like Ian said, very specific, very well-known, werewolf rules, or that particular demon creature rules, where people actually know.
Let me illustrate.
Yeah, but
hold on, let me just real quick to illustrate what I mean. If the main thing, and this would be a really bad reveal if it was a mystery, but if the main thing that causes our detective character to figure out it's a vampire killing these people, and, this guy over here, John, what's his name, is the vampire, was that he saw that John deliberately made sure not to touch a cross. That's sticking to the very hard rules of vampire, but it's not a very interesting mystery, so the writers should be able to go outside of the rules for vampires if they're doing something interesting. Go on.
Yeah, but it's I understand where you're coming from, Bill. Adding the whole supernatural aspect to a mystery gives it an extra layer of, well, for me at least, adds an extra a dimension of flavor, as it were. That's why I like H.P. Lovecraft so much. Is like what you described there was pretty much the Call of Cthulhu. You don't really understand what's going on, but then the most of the story is just this analytical, anthropological study in this cult, and then by the end it all tends to come together because you understand all these dry, boring facts about it, and it just kind of falls into this larger worldview, and then how the old gods are coming back, and the universe is much larger and bigger than we first thought. Mm-hmm. So that's the mark of a great mystery writer. It can just make you shit your pants by basically making you read the old one dictionary about history and shit.
Yeah, and Bill,
I'm sorry I kind of got us off on this tangent. Ian, I know you wanted to go to a different place, so let me just say this one last thing, and then we can go back to the topic at hand. I don't know. I still feel like, the whole idea of you can do whatever you want with a supernatural idea. That's true. But then at that point, that's just poor writing. I feel like if, let's say, we're dealing with something, not necessarily a creature, but something that's godlike level, that it can just do whatever the hell it wants and break the laws of physics. Yeah, that's a cop-out, because then, what the hell? It's anything could have happened. It could have been anything else. And it's not very believable that our point of view character or detective or whatever would be able to even figure it out in the first place. I was more talking about, and not necessarily a well-known monster like a vampire that has set rules that are being followed. Just something that has a set of rules that, even if it's not explained to us until after the mystery happens, as long as the mystery that we just saw conformed to those rules, I still think that works really well, and I really enjoy that. But let's get back to the whole idea of prose versus on film.
Okay, well, let me use an example to get back to that. All right.
Sure.
Bill, I'm echoing.
Oh, are you? Okay. Damn it, I hate it when it does that randomly. When it works for the first 10 minutes. Hang on.
Yeah. But let me use an episode of Doctor Who. The most famous one is, of course, a good example of this, and one of the most famous episodes is, of course, Blink, where by the end of it, all of it makes perfect sense, and once you know the reveal, you can see all these cool little things that built up to the discovery at the end. But to me, it's not the same thing as a mystery in the strict sense, because those creatures had never existed in the universe before, so we have no way of knowing what's going on and piecing it together ourselves independently of the reveals that the character's getting.
But you could say that, but all that all really just comes down to personal preference, don't you think?
No, and I'm getting that. But I'm trying to focus the point of the video. I want to talk more about mystery that potentially could be solved by us.
So we're talking realistic, okay. So
yeah,
let's get down. Yeah, let's get down to like criminal psychological mystery. I agree.
Yeah, hard crime.
Let's crack down on that.
Yeah,
hard
and I mean,
crime.
I was working last night, and in all one sitting, Milan, I'm sure you're very pleased with me, I listened to Warren Ellis's first novel, Crooked Little Vein.
I heard that book is fucked up.
That book is an escapade into Milan's psyche.
Indeed.
It's all about perversion, and the thing that I liked about this book is it immerses you in this world of just strange perversion, and everyone that has one of these weird-ass kinks keeps telling us, oh, it's completely normal, it's the new way society works. The characters are chasing something that their client wants to create or make society go back to good old-fashioned America in the 50s. And the ultimate reveal of the story is completely dependent on the fact that this is the new normal. And that's why it was a satisfying mystery, because you keep getting all these admittedly strange kinks, but everyone keeps telling you it's normal. So when the character makes his choice at the end of the book, and I'm going to try to keep this, somewhat spoiler-free, when the character makes his final decision at the end of the book, it makes perfect sense as the mystery of what he would do once he had obtained this object. That the mystery was, what are you going to do with it if you do get it? And the solution to the mystery was brilliant. That being said, there's kind of a third act shoehorn at the kind of thing going, but it was believable enough, since there was also a discussion with a serial killer, and that was really random too, but didn't affect the plot. He introduced that he could introduce random characters that wouldn't affect the overall plot very early on.
And he made the serial killer charming, which is a sign of a good writer.
Yeah, it was funny. The guy that they had voicing the serial killer sounded just a little bit like Sean Connery.
He even said that Sean Connery should play him in the movie that was going to be made about his life.
But yeah, so you get in Crooked Little Vein, it's very weird story. I mean, a guy talks about how he's injecting monkey shit into his arm at one point.
That's healthy.
It's a very as you do.
Yeah.
It's a very strange universe, but none of the actions in it none of the things going on in it are necessarily supernatural. They talk about things being supernatural, but that it's essentially just hype. If you really want to, there's nothing to claim 100% this is a supernatural element, because it can be attributed to just hype and mythos surrounding the object.
Kind of reminds me of Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yeah, exactly. And that was another one. It seemed like it was going to go to a supernatural place, but if you were paying attention, looking at it objective, you that showed it's got a perfectly logical explanation for everything.
Especially my favorite moment was, Sherlock doesn't show any interest in the case really once that guy comes in. It's not until he calls it a hound that he shows interest. And when we find out why, I found that so fascinating and cool. And I think Hound of the Baskervilles is, at least in my opinion, at least the second best, straight up mystery in Sherlock.
I don't care for that one. I don't care for that episode, just because Moriarty isn't involved. But this isn't going to be a review of Sherlock. I promise.
No, yeah. But I'm just saying that, I think it's a really well handled mystery in and of itself, separate from the series.
Agreed.
Yes. It's very. I'm going to talk more about the book.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
The Hound of the Baskervilles, and just it's not going to be a review, but more the what it represented. Strangely enough, the writer, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, believed in fairies, and it's just this really weird, bipolar way. It's strange. It's like when you find out, Richard Dawkins is a Christian. He's not, but what if he was? It would be kind of weird. But it just is, he writes about this extremely rational, almost obviously atheistical character, and then he believes in fairies. But I love the stories where it's essentially the Scooby-Doo mystery, where all the townspeople go, oh,
Old Man Jenkins.
Yeah, exactly. All the townspeople want you to believe
the greatest team of detectives on the planet drive around in their van with their Great Dane.
Can I finish my damn point? God damn it! Anyway, so yeah, it's just a bunch of it's. God damn it! Now hold on. All right, basically, yeah, I love the stories where you're expecting it to be a supernatural reveal, while it's actually just, it's more of a satisfying conclusion when it turns out, when the detective or the main character basically breaks it down. It makes it basically make it all make sense. It just goes into how the trick works, how the pyrotechnics were involved, how they basically smeared glow-in-the-dark paint over their dog and let it loose during the night.
To get off of the BBC series of Sherlock, you look at the first movie in the Robert Downey Jr. thing, and this will help to transition to film more generally. You look at the first movie in the Robert Downey Jr. Franchise for Sherlock Holmes, and it's this villain who's saying he's a user of black magic, and he's trying to portray to the world that he's this wizard, basically
Satan worshiper, basically.
Yeah, and then at the end you get that. I love when the detective wraps everything up. It's always so cool. At the end you get Sherlock Holmes wrapping it all up, and he says, you did this, and he gives all these wonderfully scientific explanations. And this is where my argument for why I think mystery works better in film is because as he was wrapping it up, it flashed back to him just messing around with random little things in the backgrounds in previous scenes in the movies. And you go back to those scenes, and it's just replaying the exact same thing, only they zoom the camera in on a different portion of it this time. And that's why I think it works better in film, because you can just have your major fucking clue in the background, something that the main character just glances at and then doesn't pay any attention to throughout the rest of the story. But you can have your major clue just as a background element, and you don't have to devote any significant time to it as long as it's there. Whereas in prose, the big problem you have is you have to introduce your concept, and it's a very delicate balance between introducing it subtly and as a natural part of the plot, but making it important enough that it'll stick in the reader's mind, and beating someone over the head with it so that it just becomes the very obvious key to the mystery.
What oftentimes prose seems to do is it'll start to introduce what's going to eventually be the culprit, if you will, of the mystery itself very early on after the mystery begins. Once the first murder happens, let's say. And then they'll introduce the element that seems innocent enough at first, but later on they're going to continue to plant hints that this is the cause of our mystery, the killer, so to speak. Go ahead, Milan.
Basically, that's a very good point, Bill. I love mysteries on film because then you have the added bonus of, noir, the filming technique, the filming style, and detective stories go hand in hand, and it's fun and it's gritty, yada yada yada. But I like a good written literary detective story because, I love film and it's a great visual medium, but unless you have the character talking all the way through, and it's a great thing when it does happen. Harks back to the old 1920s, 1930s black and white detective flicks, but I like a good written detective story because then you get into the characters' heads. You get to see, imagine the author breaks down how the cogs work in the detective's brain. You can see him all figure it out. It's almost being there at the operating table as the detective kind of dissects the situation. Okay, walks around the room and this bullet shard is stuck in this wall, and this glass is broken here. Then it's like you're just floating you're floating inside his head, and just observing, seeing what he thinks, and just because it makes the mystery a lot more intimate. It makes it a lot more fascinating for me, at least. I love detective movies on film, and it is cool when that big reveal happens, but it's more of a fun, I'm a big detailed guy. I know you guys
we're well aware, Vaughn. We're well aware.
Yeah, I know. I guess that's why I like the Call of Cthulhu so much. You guys didn't really like it all that much, because the first part, at least, with all the dry facts. But I love those extra little gritty details. These little offhand mentions that get brought up at the very end. Because it's just the building of the puzzle. You're only given 2 or 3 jigsaw pieces, and they're all from just different sides of the picture. Then slowly as you go along, the picture gets filled in more and more. And if you're smart enough, and if the author is good enough, you can, if the story's hackneyed, you can tell what the picture is instantly. But if it's a really fucked up, 6-eyed octopus or something, you don't see it coming.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that was my problem with Supernatural. But let me just go and say this, because I meant to and I forgot. Film can do it just as bad as mystery, of giving you the reveal of the cornerstone, the keystone piece, whatever you want to call it, of the mystery, by not making it a subtle enough part, or if the detail that they need you to know to solve the mystery before them is not something that they can figure out how to naturally involve, they can do a bad job of it. That's actually one of my favorite bits in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and I'm going to warn everybody. This is like the one time I'm going to say spoilers, by the way. Warn everybody, spoiler right now. In Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, within the first, I want to say half hour of the movie, Robert Downey Jr., he narrates in portions of the film. Robert Downey Jr. is in a conversation with Val Kilmer, and he looks over and goes, I wonder who that guy is. And Val Kilmer explains that he's this, businessman with all these connections, and there's this thing going on with his daughter. And Robert Downey Jr. stops the film to narrate and goes, I fucking hate detective movies where they give you some bullshit information off the side, and then at the end it turns out to be the most important part, like, I bet you didn't remember this guy. And guess what? The information Val Kilmer gave him in that scene, most important information in the damn movie.
Yeah, that's funny.
But the thing is, if you with the hackneyed TV mysteries, if you're a good enough writer, conventions, if you subvert them enough, can be your friend. But if you follow them too closely, the viewer or the reader, in that case, can just instantly know the butler did it. That's why you gotta have it, be the guy who's actually narrating it, and he has a split personality or something. That would be something.
That is something we should talk about.
Oh yeah, the whole
split personality things. Because Raising Cain is another really good film. What's his name? Third Rock from the Sun. He was in Dexter. What's his name? The actor played the commander in Third Rock from the Sun. It's gonna come to me later.
Wait, the guy who plays Dexter.
No, not the guy, not Michael C. Hall. The guy, he was the Trinity killer in Dexter.
Oh, John Lithgow.
Yeah, John Lithgow, there we go.
Yeah, that's it.
John Lithgow was in this movie called Raising Cain, and it's a really messed up premise, but basically his father was an abnormal psychologist, and as an experiment, he caused traumas in his son to create multiple personalities. And so you get to see this wonderful mystery unfold about child's kidnapping, or children being kidnapped rather, and you don't know really who the culprit is, because the person that's the culprit, but not which personality it is, which was fascinating.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is very fascinating. I want to check out that film. Yeah, it's fascinating to see I like the underdog detective. I know it's a cop-out, but I love the underdog detective. The guy that's not exactly smart enough to get everything at the right time, so he doesn't end up, so that he can avoid getting his ass kicked. I like that type of detective that by the time he figures everything out, he's basically fucked. So yeah, that true test of the character comes at the very end, where he's
the in over his head detective.
Yeah, that's right. If he smart his way out, or is he basically screwed over by the end of the story because fuck, I didn't realize that, and the villain kind of laughs at him and then shoots him in the head or something. Or he's already dead and he's narrating his how he died.
Fallen is a good one. That's kind of like that. It's not the detective that narrates it, but Fallen's a supernatural one, but you very, very early on know the rules of the character, and that's all you need. Like within the first, I think, 10 minutes of the movie, you know all the rules about the monster, as it were. So that helps. That's supernatural fiction that I would consider still a hard mystery because you know the rules of it. If you introduce it early on, then it's fair, in my opinion. Does that make sense, Bill?
Definitely.
Yeah, but I still think that even if you do it in the reveal, I still think it's fair.
No, I think it's fair if you introduce it early on because it allows you to know early on the scope of it, so you can still figure.
So the point that you're trying to get across is like it's fair when we the audience can solve the mystery with the detective, as it were.
Yeah, and that sounds kind of arrogant, but at the same time, if the detective is piecing the facts together, we should be able to piece the facts together.
Yeah, because if you know the answer straight at the very beginning, and you just see the detectives solving it, then it's no longer interesting. You're just seeing the character in the book or the movie, basically finding out slowly what we already know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I don't like it when it's spoiled early on anyway. Just like, and I'm not saying second chapter, it's like, okay, it's this guy.
Well, the thing about Fallen is it was a demon that jumped in and out of people. It could possess people at will. So that was what was really interesting about Fallen is you didn't know who was a demon or what exactly was going on, but there were really subtle hints throughout the movie that this person was being possessed at this particular moment.
Well, what I always like is when... And I don't want to keep bringing it back to Supernatural, so I'm just going to say this one last thing. And this actually goes for normal mystery, too. It's, I like to learn the rules, as it were, with the detective. The interrogations, if you will. Going to this guy. Going to, just as a cliched example, going to the nun where the killer might have been raised as an orphan, or whatever. And learning the rules and the background of this potential suspect. I always like that as well.
You're basically building up a character profile of the murderer.
Exactly, precisely.
Yeah.
And actually, that's probably my favorite part of the mystery, because it draws you in.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually something that kind of gets us into something I wanted to talk about. Alright, so you have film, which is an entirely visual medium, right? Well, visual and audio.
Right, yeah, I was like, we've got dialogue, Ian, we're not in the silent era anymore.
Anyway, you have film, which is an entirely, visual and audio kind of medium. Then you got prose, which is entirely, all you get is the words on the damn page, unless you get, one picture if you're lucky.
Well, then you have to build it in your mind.
I do like prose mysteries where you finish the story, then you look at the cover and go, but anyway...
I've never had that.
I have. It's awesome. But anyway, something that's right in the middle that we definitely should talk about since we're the geeky gentlemen is, of course, comic books.
Oh, good point.
Because you get both. And real quick, I promised I'd talk about this because it has been annoying the hell out of me lately. Scott Snyder does not know how to write a mystery story. It's been driving me mad. I've been reading his Batman run currently, and to be fair, I didn't read the Black Mirror. Maybe it was good. I don't know. But the most recent example, and I like it because it's fairly well self-contained to use, is the most recent issue of Batman. in which in the first couple pages we see Bruce Wayne robbing a bank. And as I saw that happen, I go, that's fucking Clayface. And then it's treated like it can't possibly be Clayface because there's a DNA match. And then Scott Snyder reveals that Clayface is mutating, and therefore it really can be him. I'm like, you can't change a fundamental part of the character to create your mystery. That doesn't, you don't get to change it in the middle of, essentially in the middle of our character's journey to craft your mystery. That doesn't work.
Well, what annoys me about that...
I think he was trying to go for some sort of misdirection. Since everybody, because everyone's like, hey, it's Clayface. It's not Clayface. It's totally not Clayface.
Well,
all
then,
right, maybe
I just
it's
use Clayface
not.
because I just use Clayface because it was the quick one. But look at fucking Court of the Owls. The entire time we're supposed to, oh, Bruce Wayne actually had a brother that we've never heard of before. They kept it a secret? How?
I doubt that it's gonna stay that way for very long because it doesn't seem like a very believable thing within the universe, though it is the New 52, so who the fuck knows? But actually, I don't know. I very much so doubt that they're gonna keep Bruce Wayne. They're gonna keep Lincoln March as his brother. I think that that's gonna get like, oh, he's not actually his brother. He's this random crazy person who, built up this, backstory. But I guess we'll see in time. I know he's going to be on the book for quite a while to go.
I think there was mention that Bruce Wayne could possibly have a brother in the Bronze Age, but that's just Scott Snyder trying to do his poor Grant Morrison. Not to say it was a bad story.
That's my thing about Scott Snyder. It's just ever since he took over, he's just Grant Morrison light.
I like Scott Snyder. He's okay.
Because he's Grant Morrison light. He's diet Grant Morrison.
I don't really agree with that. I think they're very different.
No, just everything he's been doing has been at least since Court of the Owls. To be fair, that's the first stuff I've read of his with Batman. But Court of the Owls, Leviathan with all the interesting complex turns taken out of it. Death of the Family, Clown at Midnight with all the complex, interesting turns taken out of it and stretched out into a long-ass story where he threw in, oh yeah, Joker's been to the Batcave. It's Grant Morrison, it's diet Grant Morrison.
I still think their writing styles are very different.
I'm just talking about their plotting.
I don't know.
But you can say the same thing about every comic writer, because they all juggle similar themes in continuity.
Well, no, at a certain point, if you're making that argument, at a certain point, it's just, okay, all ideas are the same, every story's been told. But with Scott Snyder, it's the exact same story, he's just changing the characters and making it more accessible to a wider audience.
Well, what I like about Court of the Owls, as opposed to something like Leviathan, is I don't see Leviathan as really the anti-Batman. At least in terms of Batman in Court of the Owls, Batman and the Court of Owls are fighting for control over Gotham.
Leviathan's in control over Gotham currently.
Okay, I haven't been reading comics, mind you, so I don't know if that got developed in that way. Sorry. But I still feel like Leviathan and the Court of Owls are two different things. I like the idea of there being this secret organization that has been controlling Gotham behind the scenes for ever since before Batman became Batman. I find that very interesting. Was the execution perfect? No, I have major problems with Court of Owls, but though mainly my major problem with it is I think it's poorly paced. I think that there are some points are too dragged out for too long, and then some points are too short. I think the Night of the Owls thing, I'm like, did this really have to be its own story arc? It's a night where they just decide to attack people. We've seen this before. But I actually thought we could have spent more time in the maze if it was, if some more twists and turns were thrown in. Anyway, to get off Court of Owls, in terms of comics, I think
one little thing. Gotham must be fucking riddled with these secret societies that were in control of the city.
Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's like... Gotham is basically
like if you're not a
hell.
member of a secret society, you're not really a Gothamite unless you're a member of like at least a minimum of 3 secret societies.
You know it's funny. You know it's funny. It's probably like all these secret societies kind of agree to disagree to ignore each other. Like we have been controlling Gotham, no, But I thought these guys were controlling Gotham. Well, what guys? I know who you're talking about. Those guys. No.
Oh no! You know what would be hilarious is if like someone showed up to a Leviathan meeting wearing their Court of Owls mask and was like, "Oh shit, guys, I'm sorry."
No, I want to see a story arc where they all have a fucking giant war.
That'd be cool. Like that's what I liked about war games is you had a small mystery there. It was kind of spoiled with the prologue. Like that was the thing that kind of killed war games is in the prologue Stephanie Brown says I'm using Batman's plan, and then like at the like peak of the mystery aspect of war games Batman goes, oh my god, it was my own plan.
The readers are like, no shit, Batman.
No, but anyway, so the war games thing was interesting because it was just all the mobs fighting each other for control over Gotham's underbelly. That was cool.
But I just want to say this about comics very generally, since we kind of made this point earlier, separately with film and prose. It's kind of the perfect marriage. You've got, as Milan was pointing out, you've got the detective working it out in their head with the narration boxes as we're looking at things. And then we can still have the great like reveal scene that Ian was talking about earlier at the end. And I think they work together very, very well. My only problem with comics is that I think there can be an overdose of narration.
Yeah, that it's just a matter of how good your writer is at exposition, really.
Yeah, and I think your writer has to be very aware of when they have to expound upon certain things. Like I'm going to use the scene, and this isn't a comic book, but I'm actually going to apply it to a comic book. The scene in Arkham City where Batman has to work out where the bullet came from in that courthouse, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, Batman's standing there, and you look towards a window, and there's a bullet. You track the line of the shot first, using detective vision, okay? Then you look over to, like, the right, and there's a bullet, there's, like, a broken glass, and then you look through the bullet hole. Mm-hmm. If that were in a comic book, I don't think there would have to be exposition.
Yeah, and like part of why there's exposition there is because it's a game.
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying the game does it. I don't remember it, but if they did it,
no. Batman explains, "I've got to use my detective vision to figure out where the bullet hole came from." In a comic book, you just would have seen what you just described in 3 panels, right?
Exactly. And I don't.
That's the thing. Arkham City is kind of like a film. But it's got elements that are very much like reading a first-person narrative novel.
But that's interesting. Like that brings a whole new idea for basically mystery stories and video games.
That would be fantastic to see more of. You get some here and there. Lupin the Third was fun. Heists, oddly enough, share a lot in common with mysteries. Heist movies tend to have a lot in common with mysteries. Ocean's 11, not a great movie, but you gotta love some of the crazy reveals of what they're planning at the end of that.
Especially in a heist movie when the heist goes wrong.
Oh yeah, definitely. And actually something else that is, I think why I like mystery so much, is it has a lot in common with the very basic form of how humor works, right? And when I say humor, I'm just going to use jokes as an example. When you have a good joke, normally, there are of course variations, but normally it works because you're expecting something from, you're posed a question, you're expecting a certain kind of answer, and then you get an answer that not only works, but works in a completely different way that you would never expect, and that's why you find it funny. With a mystery, instead of finding it funny, you just find it fascinating, right? You're posed a question in a mystery. Who killed this man? And in a good mystery, you're normally you go, oh, okay, well, it's the butler because he has the clearest motivations. But then as you go into it, as you get your answer, it's honestly this really complex and interesting thing that's, his wife was mad that he cut her out of inheritance, or not inheritance, cut her out of his will, and so she murdered him and framed the butler for it. And you're like, oh wow, that's really interesting, that's really fascinating. I mean, that story could work, but the way I described it sounds like shit.
It's just an example.
No argument here.
I understand where you go. I understand what you're coming from.
But like, let me just go real quick. Here's a joke in this format. It's not necessarily a question, but here's a joke in this format. Rene Descartes is sitting at a bar, and he's had a couple beers. And the bartender says, "Hey, would you like another?" And Descartes goes, "I think not." Then suddenly ceases to exist. And that's funny because Rene Descartes is the one that says, "I think, therefore I am." So yeah, sorry, over your head, but I wanted something that I.
No, I got it, but it's.
I got it. It was funny. It was. It was kind of funny. It's dry chuckle funny.
Yeah, I wanted something that I could explain why it works. So I picked an intellectual joke. I know, Bill. I know. I'll keep my jokes at 3rd grade reading level.
No, just throw a giant monster in there. He'll enjoy it.
Oh, shut up.
Speaking of giant monsters, back to Crooked Little Vein a little bit. What the fuck? Monitor lizards cleaning up and Godzilla Bukkake.
What?
Bill, are you a member of NAL?
I don't know what that is.
National Association of Lizard Lovers?
No, not recently.
Well, like, there's this really fucked up scene in, Crooked Little Vein where he's, investigating the path of this property, and it takes him to a building that is permanently owned by this group of people. And he goes in, and they're all watching a movie. It's like, Godzilla. Oh, okay, cool. I'll watch Godzilla. And then he looks over at the guy sitting next to him, and he's got on this rubber hand that looks like a lizard hand, and he's jerking off. And then, like, as the movie goes on, they've replaced, like, they're playing monster fights, but they've replaced the audio with, like, sexual moans.
Oh! God damn it. Fucked up people in this world, man. Fucked up people.
And then, like, it was funny. Just, I love how how that chapter ended. You're gonna want to get out of here before they clean up. What do you mean? And he just looks over toward the door, and there's a guy bringing in a cage of monitor lizards.
Oh,
it's like, oh, that's, ugh.
The scary thing is, all these quirks are actually real things.
I am not surprised by that at all. And I wonder exactly at what point Warren Ellis thought, I'm kind of a horrible person for writing this book because this book has destroyed my humanity since I had to go look this shit up.
I had to get inside these people's heads.
The strange thing is this was actually his job before he became quote-unquote Warren Ellis. But the thing is, I mean, exactly. But the thing is, it's just, I mean, god damn it, man. God, what was I gonna say?
I don't know. You're gonna talk about this time that you were hanging out and having an innocent childhood moment, and then one of your parents came in,
and then Warren Ellis came up to you and fucking like raped you or something.
No, not that story. That I'll tell that one later. But it's funny enough that now Ian is the one telling fucked up stories that makes Bill feel uncomfortable, and now it's
I don't feel uncomfortable. I'm just like, really?
See, it's a reversal of expectations.
Dude,
this episode of Geeky Gentleman truly is a mystery.
No, it's like I'm spreading a disease. I mean, I've affected Ian. You're
a disease, all right.
Well, like, it was funny. I wanted to. It's been a while since I read a detective story because I rarely get a chance to read actual books anymore, just because work, school, podcasts. So
you have people out there. You see what Ian sacrifices for you.
So no, but I like audiobooks. So I was talking to Lon the other night. I was like, "What's a good mystery book that I could probably download an audiobook of?" He goes, "It was so instantaneous too." Crooked Little Vein by Warren Ellis. He didn't even have to think about it. And it's a good mystery. It was a satisfying ending. I prefer a little more grounded than this. It's kind of a weird concept, but they explain it well enough.
Ian, it was recommended to you by Milan. What did you expect?
No, when I say mystery story, I assume Milan would pick more of like a grounded mystery, but no, he picks a guy injecting monkey shit. Because fuck it, why not?
Don't get mad at me, get mad at Warren Ellis. Jesus.
But Milan, I'm pretty sure this is what Warren Ellis wrote after having a conversation with you.
Milan just like
funny enough.
Ellis and was just like, hey man, how are you doing? You know, I'm a big fan of your work, and you see, when I was a child, I was reading one of your comic books, and I read a part, and it reminded me of this story where I met this man who injected himself with monkey shit, and he was a fascinating look.
Bill, can I just say you sound shockingly like one of the voices the guy was doing in Kung Pao Enter the Fist right now. But anyway, we got Blue Dragon 5 wanting to Skype in, so it seems like a good enough time to add him. Milan, sing a tune as we add Blue Dragon 5 for the Skype-ins.
Sing the song.
Okay. Welcome to the show, dear Blue Dragon 5. You call us every day of every night. We welcome you to the show tonight. Welcome you today.
That was out of key, but okay.
Yeah, anyway.
Because I was doing this the whole time, I was like, and Milan was just going a completely different direction.
Well, if that's not a warm welcome, I don't know what is.
Then you don't know what is, I gotta tell you.
Gunfire.
Anyway.
That's
hey,
a warm welcome for you.
How's it going? I'm going to hazard a guess, alright? I think Blue Dragon 5 is gonna ask us to talk about mysteries in Batman the Animated Series.
You'd be wrong, sir.
Damn!
Holy shitballs!
I was so fucking sure. Okay, what you got, bud?
Well, gentlemen, I was thinking, if you could compare and discuss investigative methods, particularly with some famous investigators, detectives in both literature and television and film. But 3 examples to kind of start with would be Adrian Monk, Will Graham, and Sean Spencer.
Will Graham, help me out here.
Red Dragon, the Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
My favorite's the
right.
Sonic Screwdriver.
Really,
guys? No?
Right.
No? Okay.
Well, since I've seen all of these, I'm gonna start. Will Graham, his method of investigation, and this is actually a really good thing to talk about. Will Graham's method of investigation was he became a psychological copy of the killer. And I think the penultimate scene that shows this is when he distracts the Red Dragon murderer, the Tooth Fairy.
Dollarhide.
Well, I'm gonna go with the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, sure, I'm just... Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
When he distracts the Tooth Fairy from, hurting his son by basically imitating what the man's mother did to him. So, like, he was so deep into his head, he knew this would shock and disturb the guy to such a point that it would just put him into overdrive rage mode. And so Will Graham's method of investigation was to become the killer, to predict where they were going to be and how they would react to things to best trap them. That's actually how he caught Hannibal Lecter, is he was using Hannibal to help solve Hannibal's murders, but he indirectly realized, no, he's eating people. And then as he was looking around Hannibal's study, he saw that there were a lot of cookbooks and medical journals next to each other. So that's how he solved that. Sean Spencer just acts like a frickin' clown the entire time, completely distracting people so they do not take him seriously and see him as no threat whatsoever, so that they slip up, which is something that's done a fair amount in different versions of fiction, though I think he does it better than anybody else. And Monk is just a very, very by the facts, what's wrong with this picture kind of guy. You know those pictures where it's like two pictures next to each other and it's of seemingly the same scene, but just the details are slightly different in each one?
Yes.
Monk's the guy that can identify every single one of the problems.
And then he like catches one that was actually a printing error.
Yeah, exactly. There's in the pilot of Malcolm in the Middle, they show Malcolm a picture for 2 seconds and ask him, please tell me everything that's wrong with this picture. And Malcolm's like distracted. She goes, no, Malcolm, can you please just focus on this? The driver, and he just lists off every single issue, and that's kind of what Monk does, but in his head without being angry about it. He catches all the inconsistencies in an area and uses that to piece together exactly what happened. Sean's probably my favorite, just because, anyone that can work in, Power Rangers and Thundercats references into solving a murder mystery is talented, goddammit.
Sorry to say, I'm only familiar with one of those. And I'm not super familiar with Monk, so I'm just gonna agree with Ian and shut up.
Any input on this, or have you got nothing on me?
I like Monk.
Okay, fair enough. But let's talk more broadly about those investigation methods. Which ones do you think could only work? I think Monk's. Let me do this. I think Monk's is the one that only works on. Or Monk's and Sean's only work on film, because Sean notices the same kind of things Monk does, but it's only because he puts people off guard. So more Monk. I think Monk's the only one that can only work on film, personally. I mean, Red Dragon, obviously it was a book first, so,
book, characters like Sherlock Holmes who start in books, their methods of deduction are much more based on exposition. Like whenever you see Sherlock Holmes in any version, regardless of, time period or whatever he notices about a dead body or whatever he happens to be looking at, he has to exposit upon why that's connected to the murder. And Sherlock, the TV show, does it in a very interesting way with the text and the visuals and all that stuff. His mental palace, as it were. Anyway, but it's all about exposition, because that's the only way you can do it in a book, because you can't just notice things. So I mean, I like that. It's very interesting. It's always, like, what the fuck, whenever Sherlock does work out something like that, where he's just like, this is connected to this, because this happens, and then this happens, and then this scientific fact.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sherlock uses a lot of things that can be found out independently, and I think that's a consequence of the writer. I feel like the way... I have no factual information or sources to back this up. This is just how I feel. I feel like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had a couple scientific books laying around, and he would look up interesting little factoids, and then craft a mystery around that factoid to have that factoid be his reveal.
Sherlock is very much so the encyclopedia detective.
But I also like the idea of creating a psychiatric profile of the serial killer to get into the serial killer's head and find
that too.
And that it's in there you can go into interesting ideas of, oh, you're just like me because you can think exactly like me. Yes, I can understand you, but there's one main difference between you and I. You eat people, I don't go through with it.
Yeah, I can see why that would be appealing.
Yeah, and that's what I like about Criminal Minds, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't watch that show religiously like some people do, but I've caught a couple of episodes and I do quite like it. And that's what that's all about. It's about psychological profiling, and then they don't so much go into this piece of glass was broken in this specific way. Though they do go into some forensics, it's a lot more about psychology, and I find that very interesting. Because, the whole time they're talking about the he or the her, and you don't know who they are, so it makes it a little bit scary in that regard. So I enjoy that as well, Milan.
Yeah, because he's like, he broke the glass because his mother beat him up as a kid. That's why
he broke the glass because his father was a glass worker and got killed that way, something like that. Yeah.
I was talking about one of my favorite movies, mystery movies, and that's of course Lucky Number 11. That movie's got just a great sense of humor. And the weird thing about those 3 movies, let me just say this real quick, is I know Kiss Kiss Bang Bang came out in 2005, Lucky Number 11 in 2006, and Big Nothing, I believe, was either 2007 or 2008. And I was looking into it. No one creatively involved with the writing or the directing has anything in common from what I can tell. There's no same writer, same director on any of these movies.
And they came out consecutively. That's so weird.
But there's such similar tones is what's so shocking. There's a scene in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang where Robert Downey Jr. wants to interrogate a guy, so he grabs the dude's revolver, takes out all the bullets except one, spins the chamber, locks it shut, points the gun at his head, and is like, "Tell me what I want to know." You wouldn't. And Robert Downey Jr. pulls the trigger, and the gun actually goes off and blows the dude's head off. And, Val Kilmer just yells his ass off and like, the fuck would you do that for? And then, in Lucky Number 11, he's staying at his friend's apartment, and his friend isn't there, and these 2 thugs come to pick him up, or pick up the person that lives there, is their instructions. They go, we got orders to pick up the dude that lives here. Well, I don't live here. I'm not the dude that lives here. Well, you sure look like the dude that lives here. Well, then obviously you don't know what the dude that lives here looks like. Listen, if you don't come with us, I'm gonna have to make you come with us. Because we have orders. And orders is orders. I don't think anyone's ever told you not to use the word you're defining in the word you're defining. And he's like, he punches him in the stomach and goes, I will break your fucking nose. Actually, my nose is already broken. Just very similar tone, and Big Nothing just, oh god, Big Nothing. I love that movie.
It's a whole lot of something.
I'm trying to pick one. Maybe it's Simon Pegg running around. I'm not even gonna try with Big Nothing. There's just too much. But anyway, and Big Nothing. I haven't heard Pink Floyd in years. There's my moment from Big Nothing. I'm not going to explain it at all. But anyway, in one of the scenes in Lucky Number 11, the character owes money to 2 very powerful people, and toward the end of the movie, he brings a suitcase in and hands it to the guy, and the dude says, "Is this my money?" And he goes, "Everything I owe you is in there." And you see it just in the background. Here's once again my argument for why mystery works better. You see it just in the background. He opens the suitcase, and it's empty. And with the plot and the character motivations in that movie, that speaks volumes. And it's just a little tiny thing going on in the background. So, as far as deductive styles, that's the thing. Detectives are, I guess, here's an interesting question, guys. And Blue Dragon 5, after, I want to get your thoughts on this, and then we'll drop you from the call.
Okay.
With extreme prejudice.
Is the person in the mystery, is the main character in the mystery story always a detective? And what I mean by that is, even if they're a criminal and they're trying to sort something out, do we just call the person solving the mystery the detective?
Well, they kind of fall into that, role automatically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, from a telling a story standpoint, yes, because they, as their role in the story, are solving the mystery, and isn't that kind of the, story-wise consensus of a detective? Perhaps not in the real world, but, when you're writing a book or making a movie where someone is thrown into that position, they are kind of the story's detective. But, not necessarily either, because I think a detective is very much so, they're it's kind of like, it depends on how much and to what extent they're pursuing solving the mystery. And I think if they're interrogating people and they're looking at clues and they're pursuing clues, then yes, I think they could be considered a detective. If they're kind of being thrown along, not necessarily of their own volition, and they're kind of forced into using problem-solving skills, I don't know about that, but from a story point perspective, yes, I would say they can be considered the story's detective.
Okay, because that's the thing for me, is they're all, all my favorite mystery movies like, Val Kilmer's a detective, but he's definitely not the main character. Robert Downey Jr. is, and it's just insane.
Well, what is Robert Downey Jr.? A cop or a criminal or?
Robert Downey Jr. is a small-time break-in robber who accidentally while running from the cops, stumbles onto an open casting audition and gets the part and gets flown out to Vegas to shadow Val Kilmer so that he can build his acting skills to become a more convincing detective in a film.
Ah.
It's such a weird concept.
Awkward.
Please watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It is fantastic.
I do want to see it because I like those two as actors.
They're great together on screen. And watch the bloopers. Val Kilmer is like, he says something hilariously racist. Because the movie was... Actually, if you're excited for Iron Man 3, definitely watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because Shane Black wrote that, and he's the writer of Iron Man 3.
And the director.
Oh, is he the director too? Cool.
Yeah, Favreau is going to be in the film, but he's not the director of it.
Okay.
Fucking awkward as shit.
But Blue Dragon 5, why don't you answer the question I posed, and we'll move on, and you can listen to the episode as opposed to just sitting there and being in it.
Okay.
Yes.
But by the logic of your question, wouldn't that make The Hangover a detective movie?
Yes. And it actually is. The Hangover is a mystery movie, and both of them, it's the same mystery. But anyway, the funny thing is, it's actually a very valid mystery because you could totally solve that before they do. You have all the clues in the beginning of the movie. Or not the beginning. In the scene where they wake up, you have all the clues to solve exactly what the fuck happened.
Yeah. I would consider The Hangover a mystery. I wouldn't call them detectives only because they're very much so thrown along with the mystery.
Yeah.
So
they're also the criminals.
Yeah, isn't that?
Yep.
What I like about The Hangover, and I haven't seen the sequel though. I've heard terrible things.
It's not a bad let me say this just real quick. The Hangover 2 is for the people that watched The Hangover 19 times and just started quoting it. And so they're like, we'll just make the same movie and give them new jokes to quote.
Okay.
Basically,
Anyway.
same movie, different location.
Anyway, so with The Hangover, it's like what I like about that. It's like watching a movie backwards, and not in the way that Memento is. It's like,
oh God, we gotta talk about Memento.
I actually haven't seen it in full. I'm just familiar enough with it.
Okay.
But in terms of The Hangover, it's like they've got to like trace their steps back to the exact moment where the crime occurred, so to speak. And I find that very interesting. And it's also a hilarious movie, so that helps.
Yeah. So basically, we're tracing your steps, retracing the steps of the killer to find out the answer to the mystery.
Right, but what makes The Hangover hilarious is that they don't remember that they took those steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting plot, and it's worth talking about. So yeah, I don't know, Blue Dragon 5, you want to answer the question though, as opposed to just posing another one?
Sorry about that. Yes. The example. I'm not trying to trail off here. I'm just trying to say. You posed it in an interesting way. The question. Yeah, I'm gonna say technically, yeah, they would be a detective. I'm kind of thinking like The Fugitive, in which you got a guy who's a fugitive, but yet he's the detective of the story. But then again, he's the protagonist. So still, you're asking if the character's not the protagonist, right?
Yeah, no. If the character's the protagonist, if your main character, whether they be like good guy, anti-hero, whatever you want to have it, if your main character is solving a mystery, is he then a detective, or is he just trying to solve his problem like any normal character does?
Well, if I'm looking at The Fugitive, this guy, he's not a detective, but he's just a really smart guy. He's a doctor. So he's acting like a detective, very much so. Like a detective on the run, but he's not.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the Harrison Ford movie, right?
Yeah, yes.
Because there are so many things called The Fugitive.
Oh, yes. I know, sorry about that.
Just for people interested, watch the Onion's video about The Fugitive. It's hilarious. It could totally have been a news broadcast set in that movie's continuity. It was hilarious. Anyway.
So I guess, yeah, solving a problem, man.
Yeah. I don't know, it's an interesting question that entered my mind as we were talking about it, because we keep referring to whatever the main character of the story is as the detective, but some of these people are clearly not detectives. Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Brick is not a detective, he's a fucking high school student. But he's solving a mystery, so when your story is a mystery, I guess you become a detective as opposed to you're a protagonist solving a problem. Which is interesting.
Right.
You know the thing about detectives, they're not allowed to believe in coincidences.
Okay, and with that note, goodbye.
See ya.
I knew he was going to get into that.
What the hell was that from again?
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh. Alright, okay. I knew there was going to be a Batman reference in there somewhere.
I was shocked when he didn't say Batman the Animated Series. Thanks, Blue Dragon 5, for Skyping in.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm not. Oh, by the way, I'm not gonna draw you again because I already did.
Yeah, he did, and you drew him as a detective. So
I drew him as Gordon, a police officer.
Well, no, Gordon was a detective, and then he became a police officer.
Oh, okay then.
Or no, he became the commissioner.
Well, he was a detective, then he was a sergeant, and then he was a lieutenant, and then he was commissioner.
Still, same. Anyway,
I just had to expound upon it.
Fair enough. Anyway, I don't know, it's just an interesting topic. So let's get more into the actual meat of the subject. Let's just hash it out. Now that we've discussed what we like about mysteries, what we think is interesting to see in mysteries, just yes or no answer, and then we'll have a debate about it. For me, yes, mystery works better on film than in prose. How about you?
Bill, go ahead.
Me? Oh, shit. I'm only going to say yes for now because I'm more familiar with mysteries on film. I mean, I've read, mysteries in prose as well, and it's very different. But I'm gonna say yes because I feel like it's not. And Milan, I know you're gonna disagree with me on this, so I'm bracing myself. To me, it's not as limited as prose are in terms of expounding upon the reveal of the mystery. So Milan, go ahead and disagree with me.
So wait, you say prose is good for what?
No, I said that I prefer film because I feel like it's not as limited as prose is in terms of, giving the reveal of the mystery.
Of course, you all know me. I much prefer a written, a detective story in prose because I like being in the head of the detective, figuring it out as he does. And, I like detective movies, fine enough, but it's more, I guess I'm gonna, go the other way and say good detective stories in comics kind of marries both, my literary love for detective stories.
Hold on, yes or no, prose or film?
Prose.
Well, that's not a yes or no question, Ian.
Prose.
Yeah, but yes or no, does it work better in prose or film? And Milan's saying yes, prose. I just want to make sure. Guys, this is a momentous occasion. Milan finally came down concretely on a question.
Now let's just end it. No,
Yeah, the video's over. Video's over. And
Geeky Gentleman is over. We're not doing it anymore. We're done.
I never have to talk to Milan again. Thank God.
Our relationship with Milan has been sealed.
We can all commit seppuku and be free.
Yeah, anyway, but go on with what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
You talking
basically...
to me? You talking to me?
Anyway, basically, it's, should I tell people about our little project, Ian? Because I want to hear...
We'll talk about that after the fact. They don't really need to know about that, because we don't have anything solid on it yet.
Guys, we don't need to know about your gay porno. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway.
We'll show you a couple of clips from it later, Bill, after the show.
Oh, good! I can't wait.
Anyway, see, yes, I think comics do it the best, but at the same time, I feel like you can get into a character's head in film. It's just much more rare. I mean, the thing about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Robert Downey Jr. doesn't narrate over the entire movie, but he interjects when it's important.
Well, I don't feel like narration or the character talking to us the whole movie is what you need to get into someone's head. I think getting into someone's head is knowing how a character is going to react to a certain situation. And I think you could do that just by monitoring behavior and just getting to like the person. I think that's all you need in a mystery movie, and that's another thing I like about it. You get the delivery of an actor, which leads you into doing that as well, as opposed to prose. And Milan, I'm not saying I don't like prose mystery stories. I do. I just ultimately prefer it on film.
Oh, it's fine. It just comes down to preference. It's
yeah,
fine.
for sure.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I've said it a couple times. I just want to really make sure it's drilled into your people's heads. I think mystery works best on film just because you can see your major clues in the background and you don't have to directly draw attention to them. Breaking Bad did that. There's plenty to show you things so that you understand it, or show you things that you perfectly understand on their own, but then when they all come together, it works amazingly. It's putting together the puzzle, and it creates a much more organic and much more satisfactory reveal for me in film than it ever has in prose.
How long is Breaking Bad? Because that show's been on for fucking years.
Breaking Bad's ended, or it's about to end. It's going to be 5 seasons total.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I don't know what the status of the 5th season is. I don't know if it's finished or what. Good show though.
Yeah, once it's over, I might go back and watch it on Netflix because it's very interesting. I find.
Yeah. Breaking Bad has mystery elements to it, so that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I feel that film is a better genre, or not better medium for mystery than is prose, just because it allows it to reveal itself to the point where it's staring you in the face, like something like with Fight Club. I think the film actually works better as far as the mystery side of that goes. Going back to the split personality thing, I think the mystery side of Fight Club works better than the book, just because it allows it to just stare you in the face the entire movie, and then you don't see it until after it's all done. But then when you go back, you realize I could have totally pieced this all together, but I didn't because I'm an idiot.
And then you whip yourself because of your failure.
Yep.
I did that too. No. I don't know. I think both have their advantages, but I do ultimately prefer a good mystery movie.
Bill, what the fuck is going on over there?
I don't know.
First Godzilla, now sirens.
Well, Ian, what if I told you they were both connected? Everyone, welcome to fucking My City is Under Attack by Godzilla podcast. Fucking run.
Then why are you podcasting?
Because I'm a Godzilla fan and this happened. I'm immediately the smartest person on the planet.
You know what? When Godzilla attacks, the least thing you can do is podcast about it, because you're gonna die.
Fair enough.
Indeed, Milan. Thank you for predicting my death.
Anyway,
you're welcome.
Yeah, I feel like we've all come down really solidly on this. Is there anything that anyone wants to input on, just real quick?
No, not really. I think we're kind of going around in circles.
No, I just wanted to make sure we had a really solid ending on this.
I feel like we hit this topic over the head.
Yeah. Now, Milan, I didn't ask you beforehand, but here we go for on the spot. What are we reviewing next week?
Oh. We're reviewing, goodness, what are we reviewing? Well, hold on, let me scour through my stuff. We are...
Oh, good! It's one of those.
We're reviewing, God, I didn't realize this was my week.
How hard is it to get a 3-person rotation down?
So is this like a review, or is it like a topic? Oh, a review.
It's a review. It's a topic for review.
Well, oh yeah. Oh, I got it. The Night Watch and Day Watch films. It's 2 movies.
I've not seen those or heard of them at all, so that should be interesting.
Yeah, they're by the same guy who directed the Russian director. Basically, he did Wanted, and when he came to America, he's a Russian director. They basically gave him Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, and Wanted.
Are these movies in Russian?
No. Well, they are Russian movies, but they've become popular enough. They've been dubbed over by American actors.
Okay.
Okay. Whatever. Very strange pick. This video's gonna have like 2 views.
It's gonna be me and Ian just watching it for shame.
Yeah. That's fine though. I don't mind indie I don't mind like underground topics because they actually do get a fair amount of views. So that should be fun.
All we seem to cover on this podcast is just stuff that no one cares about.
Yeah, like God, I still kind of hate myself for doing a fan film. I think that was really dumb, but I'm like, it's such a good fan film though.
Dead Space Downfall.
Yeah, like the fuck, Bill. Like it came out years ago.
I told you guys why. And I thought the reasoning was funny, and we had a fun time talking about that. I thought.
Fair enough.
Are we still recording?
Yeah.
He hasn't said the line. Juan.
Oh, right. Well, I like a quick little before we end. I like a character, a detective who's obsessed about the mystery. Somebody who's just almost anal retentive about all the little clues. And it's interesting to have a story where the character kind of, sees everything as a clue, and it turns out he's just kind of overcompensating, and only the few things that he failed to pay attention to were actually clues, while everything else are just misdirections.
Which is why Grant Morrison's Batman run was fucking amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. But yeah, that's all we got. So Milan can go to bed. Bill can, I don't know, run away from Godzilla. I'm sure everyone wearing headphones appreciates that.
Bill won. Audience, nothing.
And
now you're infected. Now you're
can go back to
too.
reading my comic books and eating my Chinese donuts.
Mm.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to
Donuts
this.
that are just Chinese.
No, they're sugar biscuits, but they're like the same kind of things as. Don't worry about it. Anyway.
Shut up, Bill. Just go back to your fucking mediocre life. Okay, Ian.
But anyway, thank you, everybody, for listening. This was a lot of fun. I don't know, Milan, can we get a special title card?
Oh, sure. Actually, I'm working on one right now. It's basically Detective Bill, Godzilla. Ian's basically laying there in a pool of blood, and you just see my scary, frowning, fizzed face in the background in shadow, looking disapprovingly.
Cool. That sounds awesome, actually.
Another thing for the Noir Godzilla.
Yep. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for listening. I've said that 3 times now. And until next time, we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Goodbye.
Bye.